Hi, I'm Donna Bowman, author of Step Right Up, How Doc and Jim Key Taught the World About Kindness, which is on the 2018-19 Texas Bluebonnet Master List. As a native Texan, I am doubly thrilled by this honor. Thank you to the Texas Library Association, to the Bluebonnet Selection Committee, to nominating librarians across the state, in fact to all librarians. Thank you for being champions of literacy. What would we do without you? Now, I'd better jump into the questions before I run out of time. Your love of horses from childhood is clear in your book. How did you learn about Jim Key and what research did you do for your book? Well, great question. And first of all, I feel like I should mention that I decided to answer these interview questions at home. So I came home to the family ranch and I'm sitting under a pecan tree next to the arena and next to the stable where I literally grew up and where I worked with horses for so much of my youth, and really where my heart connects to Step Right Up. So the other part of your question about how I learned about Jim Key and Doc was from this book. It was a book for adults that came out in 2005 by Mim Eichler-Rivas, and I discovered the book in 2006. And when I read the book, I was pretty amazed, as you can tell by all the post-it notes in the book, and all the highlighting and notes written in the margin within the book. I was amazed, but also quite skeptical. I wasn't entirely sure I believed that a horse could do so many remarkable things like reading and spelling and writing and calculated math problems and whatnot. So I had to do my own research, and I launched into some deep research. The first thing I did was read a whole lot of books about Tennessee, about slavery, about Reconstruction, about animal behavior, and the beginnings of the humane movement. And I read a whole lot of newspaper articles published between 1876 and 1912. And here they are in date order. This was one of my favorite parts of research because reading old primary sources like newspapers are really like scavenger hunts, and I'm just certain that I will find a treasure at the next time I turn the page, and that was definitely the case. I also went to Tennessee and researched in the Shelbyville Public Library where Doc and Jim lived, and then also in the Tennessee State Archives in Nashville, which was very thrilling. So that was part of my research. And next question. There have been many trick horses in history, but nothing quite like beautiful Jim Key. How did you decide which information to include about this amazing horse? Well, as you can imagine, it was very tough to leave out fascinating information about Doc and Jim because there was a lot of it that had hit the cutting room floor, so to speak. I had to choose anecdotes, tricks, examples that, number one, were most relatable to kids, that were very well documented, and that fed the theme of the story, which is about the power of kindness. So I really wanted to show Doc and Jim's relationship and how that really led to changing people's minds about the way they treated animals. So that was another great question there. Next question, were you able to meet or collaborate with the illustrator? If not, what is something you look forward to asking or telling him? Well, like most picture book authors, I did not meet or collaborate with my illustrator, Daniel Minter. The publishers like to allow them to have some creative freedom. Daniel certainly did his own research for visual details, but when he signed on to illustrate Step Right Up, I sent him a box of materials, including some of the best newspaper articles that I found that had very good descriptions of Doc and Jim and the settings. And then also I sent him one of these. This was a limited edition model horse produced by the Breyer Toy Company a number of years ago. They don't make it anymore, but it's a replica of beautiful Jim Key. So I sent that to Daniel to aid in his visual research, and I got a lovely email in response that just said, "There's a horse in my house," which was a fun way to break the ice with my new illustrator at the time. I hope I do get to meet him soon, and when I do, I'm going to give him a great big hug for the remarkable job he did with this book. All of the images in the book are first carvings. Very similar to woodcut. It's linoleum block print, so all of the images were first carvings that he had to do in reverse from what ended up on the page. It's mind-blowing. So yes, big hugs to Daniel Minter. Next question, what are some ways you hope readers will carry forward your message of kindness? Oh goodness, so many ways. I hope Doc and Jim remind readers that one person can make a difference. And sometimes it just takes one small act of kindness to make a big difference in one person's life. And then if we all decided to be a little bit kinder every day, you can see how one person's idea can blossom into a movement that can take over the world. What a kinder world we would live in, and if each one of us decided to be a little bit kinder every day. So why don't we all choose that? Let's choose to be a little bit kinder at all times. And then finally, the last question is, what advice would you give to our young authors as they learn to improve their skills? The first is what young readers hear all the time, and that's to read. Read, read, read. Read what you love to read, and then step outside your comfort zone sometimes to read what isn't natural to you. Maybe that means read more poetry, or read more nonfiction, or read more novels, or read graphic novels. Read anything, because reading exercises the writing muscles. Honestly, it does. So read, read, read. And then the next thing is to get out and live life. Experience things. Become active and pay attention to details while you are out there. How would you describe how something looked or felt or smelled? How would you describe the feel of wind in your face when you're trying to record an interview? Just think about the details as you're out there living your life. Then also consider other people's points of view. This is really important, I think, for all of us just as human beings. It's part of empathy, it's part of compassion, but as writers we need to consider how people around us view the world a little bit differently than we do. There's no right or wrong, but it's important to understand each other's point of view. And then the last thing, my last piece of advice requires that all the teachers in the room plug your ears. All right, kids, look around. Have your teachers plugged their ears? All right, here we go. I want you to write like a rebel. And what I mean by that is when you're staring at a blank page, I want you to forget all the rules. Forget the punctuation and the correct spelling and the grammar. Forget everything you're learning about English, proper English writing, because the first challenge is just to get it from your head to the paper. So think of it as a faucet. You need to turn on the faucet and just let it pour, let that story pour out onto the page. You can fix the rest of it later. But if you put too many rules in your head, that first draft is going to be painful to write. So allow yourself to just write for the joy of it first and worry about fixing it later. Well, there you go. Thank you again so much for nominating Step Right Up, How Doc and Jim Key Taught the World About Kindness. And I look forward to seeing many of you in 2018-19 at schools. And in the meantime, read a lot, write a lot, and get out there and enjoy life. Bye, y'all.